This is Will Timpson with CAD Craftsman. This video is to demonstrate the creation of a new connection using Steel Designer Pro. This will be a very basic connection, an end plate bolting this beam to the face of the column. We'll begin this by selecting the SD Connections tab and the New button. You need to select the model filter, in this case End, and under the model selection pane we'll select the blank connection and Use. Now select the insertion point for the connection and the welded member that the connection will become a part of. Select OK. Steel Designer Pro pulls this information out of the library and creates a new connection. Under Beam 7, now there's a connection folder. All the information for this connection resides in that folder. This connection is mated to a 3D sketch point and mated to the section inside the welded member. Its attachment sketch has become aligned with the welded member attachment sketch. So now we'll open this connection and fill out the rest of the information. So there's already an enveloped section 1 in here. We're going to take and edit that part and give it a weldment profile. Make sure you have the correct sketch turned on. We'll locate the profile top of steel, as it will be. In Steel Designer Pro, your weldment profiles are not rotated and they're not mirrored. Select OK. And now we're going to rename this Welded. This name becomes important later on, as this is how Steel Designer Pro locates and knows what is connected to what. So now we have a beam dummy in here, and we'll start a sketch assembly level on the front plane. The sketch is just going to be a vertical line, the length dimension on it. I'll take the line and its midpoint to the origin and make them coincident. I'll remove the vertical relation, which becomes important later. So this line is going to become attachment sketch 2, just AS2. So since the attachment sketch was hooked to the beam, AS2 will be hooked to the column. So now we need to put another dummy component in here. Under SD Parts, select Sections, and we've already got a midline section here. We need to insert it as an envelope on a sketch segment, and we'll make it a W section as well. And its location is center. Select that attachment sketch. And Steel Designer Pro creates the new file. So we have sections 1, the beam, sections 2 is the column. The feature for sections 2 needs to be renamed Bolted 1. This will allow the insertion process to resize this column. So now we'll need an end plate for this. Again, under Parts, we'll go to Plates. And we'll just allow this blank plate to go in as a non-envelope and insert it at the origin. Tick OK. Now this plate comes in with a drawing already attached to it. So we'll take that part and modify it to be what we want it to be. Edited sketch. And we'll delete relations that we don't need. And put some holes in this. First thing is, I'm going to put a line in here to give me an edge clearance. I'm going to drop down a certain amount for my holes. Now I'm going to give the holes a space between them for a gauge line. And create the holes. Just make these two equal so they stay the same. This will come down and attach to the origin. This allows us to mate things in place. I'll actually add another line down here, center line, and link these two variables together, which later on, that will be handy. Now we're going to want more than two holes, so we'll add a linear sketch pattern in here. And dimension the Y spacing, dimension the instance count, swap the direction, and make these holes come down. So now, when I exit the sketch, I have a full plate. We'll go back and clean up our drawing a little bit. As when you put this in the library, you want to have your drawings complete so that there's no work required for them later. And think about how you want to do your drawings, knowing that things might change. So now I have a fully dimensioned plate drawn. So now we'll take this plate and we'll go back to the assembly and float it. Move it around to get it somewhere close where we want it to be. Since plates are drawn on the top plane, I'm going to stick the top plane to the face of the column. The front plane of the plate will now be coincident with my top plane of my assembly, and its right plane coincident with the origin. Try not to use any more mates than you have to. Two perpendicular mates can cause issues later on if something's a little out of alignment. Now we'll do an in-context edit on this sketch, and that extra little line that I had here, I'm now going to make coincident with the bottom of the dummy. So now this plate extends a 1/2 inch above and a 1/2 inch below whatever size this dummy has become. Now what this will allow you to do is to make sure your plate size is what you need it to be. Now rebuild that. Now the next step is to cut the beam to length. To do this, we'll start an assembly level sketch on the front plane and just throw a rectangle in. And I'll catch the bottom corner to the bottom of the dummy. Make this line a midpoint coincident with the origin, and make this point coincident with the line of the plate. Again, instead of collinear, I want to use a coincident. Only use as many mates or relations as you have to. The same way with the plate and that bottom center line there, it didn't go to the end point, it just went to the line. So now I have this assembly level sketch, and I'm going to rename it Welded Cut. And that's going to tell Steel Designer Pro that the welded member gets cut by this. So to make this look correctly, I'll edit part, section 1, and I'll do a sketch on its front plane. And that sketch will be a convert entities of the welded cut. I'll cut through all both to make the beam the length I want it to be. And this is just purely for aesthetics. So now I have a plate in here. I have my beam cut to length. The next thing I want to do is to poke holes in the column. And I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to put these a little bit closer, just so things show up. And I'm going to create myself a holes component. Just a new part. I'm going to save this part. It goes back in, and I'll steal the name from the plates and just rename it holes. And this holes component is going to come in here and be inserted and be attached to the plate. Just dropped it in here. I'll make its origin and the plate's origin coincident. If this doesn't fully define, then edit the mate to align the axis. The holes component will need to be an envelope as well. Change the properties. And just to make it look good, I'll put all the envelopes together. Now I'm going to take and edit the holes component in context. On its top plane, start a sketch. Convert entities. Select the plate face. Select the inner loops. Delete the outer band and say OK. Now I have sketches of all the holes in the plate. I'm going to turn these into a solid with a boss extrude. Mid-plane, I'll actually use 3 inches just to make sure that it hits everything. Now this boss extrude gets renamed Bolted 1. That lets Steel Designer Pro know that these holes get knocked into the Bolted 1 component, which the Bolted 1 component is the column. So now I have a plate, I have holes, I want to put my fasteners in. Under SD Parts, Fasteners, select an appropriate fastener. And these will just be 3/4 inch A325, so I like mine plain most of the time. And the face selection. The first face selection is the bolt head face. We'll use the plate. Steel Designer Pro is going to populate all the holes in that plate with identical fasteners. The washer face is the second selection. Click OK. These fasteners are attached in context to the plate and to the column. If either of those changes, the length of the fasteners will change. So now I have a beam, a column, the plate, the holes, and the fasteners. Now we'll test this. Close the parts, go back over here, and you notice I'll actually show that You notice the dummies don't actually match what's here. However, when I go to SD connections and copy, I want to copy this connection, choose the insertion point, choose the welded member as the beam, and now the bolted one member is the column. Tick OK. Steel Designer Pro copies that connection, puts it in the new location, it's created a new connection, and now it's going through the feature tree and determining everything that it needs to do. It's resizing sections 1, sections 2. It has taken and popped the holes in the beam. Excuse me, the column. And they're attached to the plate. So if you move the holes in the plate, rebuild, the holes in the column move as well. The beam has been cut to length and everything is positioned. So if we want to test this a little bit, we'll go to Modify Section and we'll choose a deeper section. Watch your position. Tick OK, and Steel Designer Pro will go through, find the dummies that are attached to that section, and change everything to match. Plate got bigger, and everything is as it should be. This connection can be uploaded to the library and used again, or you can do what we plan to do, which is to make it a little more intelligent. Thank you.